Thank you. We now can continue this morning's presentation, starting with Dr. Assal Habibi, Assistant Research Professor from the Brain and Creativity Institute, the University of Southern California, who will talk on the creative brain and her work as a neuroscientist.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My sincere thanks to the presiding officers, distinguished guests, and Sir Jonathan Mills for the invitation, and the incredible team that has organized our 3 days here together. I have really enjoyed the presentations. Thank you for the beautiful performance, Toto and David, this morning. And I'm honored to be part of the discussion today on culture and well-being. I am here today to share with you some of the scientific evidence, especially from the perspective of neuroscience, psychology, and education, on why every child, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, or nationality, should have access to quality arts education. Today, I'm going to focus my remarks on music education because that's my area of expertise. However, given everything that we know about brain and development, what I say today applies equally to dance, to visual arts, and theater. I want to first make it clear that irrespective of research findings that I will share with you today, I consider music and arts as essential components of childhood education. We don't have to justify music's place in our education system solely based on research findings related to its extra musical benefits, such as on language, on intelligence, and on maturation of the brain. However, I believe that neuroscience research in this area has greatly developed, and benefits of music education on the brain and behavior are becoming increasingly more evident. So educators, administrators, and policymakers who are often faced with making difficult decisions about school curriculum and activities, especially at times of limited budgets, need to have the most up-to-date information to make informed decisions about the place of music and arts in school. So what are some of the benefits of music? We know that experience shapes the brain. This includes the creation of new connections and facilitation of communication between neurons or brain cells, a process that we call myelination. Neuroscience research shows that infants as young as 9 months old, when exposed to music, can show enhanced brain responses to changes of pitch and rhythm, meaning they notice when something doesn't sound right. And not only in music, but patterns of speech as well, meaning like which syllable belongs to which word. That is, exposure to music does not only help their musicality, but also helps their language development. We also have evidence that music exposure can help infants perceive and recognize emotions in human voice, including sadness, fear, anger, and happiness. This leads to more successful communication and interaction with family members and caregivers. Moving beyond infancy to childhood and the experience of music making itself. We now have clear evidence that learning and performing music engages and activates many areas and systems of the brain. Consider some of the steps involved in playing a musical instrument. Reading a music score consisting of abstract symbols and having to translate them into meaningful sound by adjusting fine finger movement on an instrument. Listening and making necessary adjustments while evaluating the performance, learning and remembering the nuances of a piece, and often playing an entire piece from memory. In addition, in ensemble playing, every musician has to attend to his or own performance while coordinating with others. Through neuroimaging techniques, including magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, and electroencephalography, or EEG, we can now identify the brain systems that are involved in this orchestration. They are the sensory and perceptual system, involved in tactile, visual, and auditory perception, the cognitive and executive function system involved in planning, attention, and decision-making, the motor system that coordinates fine and gross motor action, the reward and pleasure system, and the learning and memory system. In short, making music actively engages many major systems of the brain, and there's good evidence that it increases brain capacity through neuroplasticity. In other words, music shapes the brain by making new connections and increasing the strength of existing connections between the neurons. What are some of the specific findings on the benefits of music making? Let me start with more obvious ones. Learning and performing music during childhood improves listening skills by tapping into the plasticity of the brain regions that process sound information, including the auditory cortices. One important feature of better listening that has been shown to improve with music training is the ability to detect relevant sound amidst noise. For example, when there's ambient noise in a classroom, children who have had music training can perceive the relevant information and instruction more successfully. This is very important for all children throughout the world who live in noisy environments. From a neuroanatomical perspective, brain regions involved in sound processing, such as the primary auditory cortex, and brain regions involved in sound motor integration, such as the inferior frontal gyrus, have been shown to be anatomically enhanced in trained musicians. And differences are even more pronounced in musicians who started training during childhood. If these were the only findings, the implications would be truly significant. But there are many benefits beyond auditory processing. Let me give you a few examples. We have strong evidence that music training in childhood facilitates language learning, reading readiness, and general intellectual development. We have evidence that it can foster a positive attitude and mindset and ensures that children at every stage of development are able to understand that effort and discipline can lead to success. It is also true that learning to play music enhances creativity and promotes prosocial behavior. Let me now give you some specific examples from a 5-year longitudinal study that my colleagues and I at the Brain and Creativity Institute at University of Southern California have been conducting in collaboration with the Los Angeles Philharmonic and their youth orchestra program, YOLA. We have been tracking how participation in this music program impacts the brain, cognitive and social development, and overall well-being and success of its participants. We compared a group of children ages 6 to 7 from the program with children who did not have access to music or any enrichment program. When the study began 5 years ago, the children were no different from each other in any of the brain measures or the measures of social, emotional, or cognitive. But after just 2 years of music training, we began to see significant differences. Children in the music program not only became better musically, but they also show more mature brain auditory pathways, meaning they are better at processing all kinds of sounds. They also show significantly more improvement in executive function and social skills compared to children who did not have music training. We also observed that children in the music group had more robust connectivity between the right side and left side of their brain. I want to take a moment to consider the implication of what I just said. Stronger connections between the two hemispheres of the brain can facilitate communication and integration of information across the entire brain. This can potentially give a child an advantage when it comes to synthesis of information as well as to creativity. And this change in the actual anatomy of the brain was observable after just 2 years of music training. I want to leave you with a story of one of the students in our study. A student who I call Daniela comes from a family of 6. She lives with her parents, sibling, and grandparents in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the Rampart District neighborhood in Los Angeles, the country's second most densely populated neighborhood that is affected by extreme poverty, gang violence, and drug trafficking. Her parents are hardworking immigrants who spend 10 to 12 hours a day on cleaning and construction jobs. And their demanding work schedule does not leave time for cultural activity or social interaction and learning with their children. At the same time, they cannot afford to send their children to after-school programs, and her public school does not offer any arts or music programming. In 2012, she was selected to enroll in YOLA, a community youth orchestra sponsored by the Los Angeles Philharmonic that provides free music training and instruments to children from underserved communities of Los Angeles. Now, after 5 years of participation in this program, not only has she become a skilled young musician, but she recently spoke to me about how through her music training, she has learned how a complex skill is developed through effort and mindful practice and discipline. She's a significantly better student at her school, She's more compassionate and empathic towards her family and friends, and most of all, she has gained self-confidence and believes in her natural abilities. She recently told me that she has committed herself to become a physician to help her community, but also plans to continue playing the violin to maintain art and music as part of her life. We all agree that our greatest resource for the future is the potential intellectual, creative, and social capacity of our children. Those of us in this room are tasked with the responsibility to support development of these capacities through all available means. And I'm excited that we now have compelling evidence from neuroscience to support what we already intuitively know, that music and arts can play an important role in helping children to become successful, creative, and caring individuals. I appreciate the opportunity to share this work with you and admire all the work you're all doing. Thank you very much.